Okay, this video is high-fat phony soy burger. Okay, now this is just theoretical, okay? But it's to give you an idea of just how bad these processed foods are. Because they're making soy burgers now. They got a lot of them out there already. And there's tons of processed foods that are similar to this. First of all, the soy, it's high in fat, 37 to 40% of calories from fat. High-fat foods tend to sludge the blood, decrease oxygenation to the tissues. When you sludge the blood, make it thicker, increase blood viscosity, you tend to cause hypertension. It tends to be atherogenic. High-fat diets are diabetogenic, increased risk of diabetes. GMO soys typically processed with hexane, a neurotoxin, to make you stupid. And I'm getting at it. The reason I'm going through all this is most Americans, by the time they reach 55 years of age, they're fat, sick, and stupid. By stupid, I mean they're cognitively slow. So all you got to do is avoid these foods. And it's just, when you look at these foods closely, it's so obvious. Soy is highly estrogenic. It lowers sperm counts, lowers testosterone, can distort female menstrual cycles. I know in animal studies, I think in humans too, but I know definitely in animal studies, it's damaging to the female reproductive tract. I wonder if it confuses kids on gender and sets them up to be castrated by the public schools. It increases insulin-like growth factor. Isolated soy proteins, according to Dr. McDougall, will increase insulin-like growth factor even more than animal proteins, and you worry about that being an increased risk of cancer. It's, most of the soy that's eaten is GMO. GMO is not a necessary thing. The yields from organic farms are just as good. I have a paper on that in a separate lecture, and I think that what that's largely about is an attempt to control the food supply. These big corporations, they want to control the food supply, and by having the GMO products, which the farmer is forced to buy the seeds every year, then the farmer is forced to obey them. Rather than the farmer normally should just collect their own seeds. Okay, glyphosate's a typical herbicide sprayed on soy. It's a highly toxic herbicide. It's antimicrobial and increases the risk of leaky gut. Increased leaky gut increases the risk of postprandial endotoxemia. Postprandial endotoxemia increases the risk of amyloidogenic clotting, which increases blood viscosity, which predisposes to occluding small arteries in the brain and in the heart. Not good. It increases the risk of fatty liver, which means it increases the risk of diabetes. There's some claim that they think it's cognitively damaging in children. There's a bunch of papers on that. In the water, there's routinely in tap water, there's F- neurotoxin. It's also toxic to the male reproductive tract. Again, something to lower fertility. Aluminum is in the water as a clarifying agent, which paradoxically, throwing metal in the water clarifies it by binding things to it, but it's a major, major, major neurotoxin. And F- forms complexes with Al to increase traversal of the blood-brain barrier to make it more neurotoxic, synergistically neurotoxic. They both lower fertility. F- in particular is associated with weakening the ligaments throughout the body, the collagen, including of the spine. That's why you have an entire condition called skeletal fluorosis, which mimics the appearance of diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, DISH, degenerative disc disease. Basically spinal degeneration is accelerated. There's entire communities that have endemic fluorosis, like in India, where the fluoride is very high in their drinking water, and they have tons of problems. Causes accelerated aging. Okay, then in the food, processed food, you don't want it to spoil. Fast food, you don't want it to spoil. It can sit on that shelf a long time, so they put a lot of mold inhibitors. Well, mold inhibitor is another way of saying fungal inhibitor, and fungal inhibitor is another way of saying chemicals that very often routinely are mitochondrial inhibitors. And if they're getting access across the blood-brain barrier, then they're neurotoxins. Okay, great. Who wants that? Estrogenic preservatives, super common. And you guess what? They're anti-fertility. What is a birth control pill? Typically ethinyl estradiol, EE2, okay? And because a woman's estrogen levels are high when she is pregnant, so tells her ovaries not to ovulate. Not good. They're obesogenic, tells the body estrogen is a fat storage hormone, tells the body to store body weight fat, so the baby might need that for energy, okay? Estrogenic preservatives are potentially increasing the risk of breast cancer, especially like deodorants used in the armpit, the axilla, with shared lymphatics to the upper outer quadrant of the breast. Uterus endometrial cancers are also estrogen sensitive, and so are prostate. The prostate's like the male equivalent of the female uterus. So I wouldn't be using those chemicals. I don't use them. Only thing I have in my entire bathroom is a transparent bar of soap with the fewest fewest chemicals possible. I don't even use shampoo, none of that stuff. Deodorant is for low IQ people, for chumps. You know, you walk in a room and say, hey, how you doing? You don't need to, nobody cares about your armpit. If somebody's sniffing in your armpit, they already like you. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, in the bun, you know, to sweeten up the buns on a soy burger, there's typically MSG, monosodium glutamate, or MFG, manufactured-free glutamate. And those are excitotoxins, which are neurotoxins. You know, I wouldn't eat anything with MSG in it or MFG. What else? The high fructose corn syrup is typically used to sweeten it. That comes from corn, high fructose corn syrup, typically GMO. Who knows the significance of GMO? That's not really known. Who knows what DNA damage is spliced into those things or whatever else might be. And again, I believe this is for control of the food supply, and I don't think it's in the individual, the pros, the public's best interest. This sweetener is quite often contaminated by HG, which is mercury, because it's, you know, processed through a chloralkali vat. Not good. It's typically sprayed with the herbicide atrazine. Well, gee, guess what? That's the one that turns the male frogs into female frogs. Who knows? Maybe it'll help confuse kids about gender, get them castrated at the public schools. It's also a mitochondrial inhibitor. Great. So that means it lowers your energy and makes you female-like, you know, turning the whole country into gynocracy, wussified. So anyways, that's theoretical soy burger. I would never eat that crap. It's for chumps.